we're keeping the cricket discussion going as visiting India will look to further break down Australia's Gaba fortress when the two meet for the third test in the Border-Gavaskar trophy with the series locked at 1 apiece. India's squad remains unchanged while Josh Hazelwood returns for the Australians. The Bagger Greens captain Pat Cummins explained the consistent change in his side.
You pick your best 11 you think for that week. Obviously, in background, you're trying to set up as many players to be ready if you need them for the rest of the series. But no, you pick the 11 guys you think are going to be best for that week. It's going to be hot here. We've all kind of experienced it before, so pretty quiet, short, sharp session today. Go and get in the aircon. But yeah, everyone's pulled up really well after Adelaide.
Now, the Indian batsman Shubman Gill is looking forward to the challenge of batting at the Gaba.
Conditions are definitely challenging, but I think there's a period in between, I think from 30-35 overs till the second new ball where it gets a bit easier to bat, but just that mental intensity, are you there? Because obviously the pitches are fast, and the history of Australia, they've played with fast bowlers because the wickets have been hard, bounce, fast, so you have to be right there on the mental fitness and be ready and play with the same intensity at which you came at the crease in the start.
So just a few hours before the start of this test match, which will be live on SportsMax, joining us via Zoom, we have Fazir Mohammed, the captain. 7:20 Jamaica time, 8:20 Eastern Caribbean time, the start time for this match tonight. We understand there's some wet weather around, well, for the duration of the game, not necessarily opening day. Faz has his pulse on all of these things, the captain. Faz, let me start here because I saw where Pat Cummins was talking about the use of the short-pitched ball against the Indian batters successfully in the Adelaide test, suggesting that it has always been a sort of a plan B for them, but it can easily become a plan A. Do you think that will be a factor in this test match?
It could be, Lance. And the thing is that it really is, you don't want to be obviously telegraphing your tactics. And I suppose he's just throwing that out as some sort of message that, it could happen, it may happen, we don't know, this could be the A game now or whatever. And it may not be. It could be full of length. Come ball one. If it is Australia bowling first in seamer-friendly conditions at the Gaba, which it usually is on day one at that venue in Queensland. And again, you mentioned the weather. And because it is very much in the tropics, it is a city, Brisbane, especially the suburbs, that remind you of Georgetown. A lot of wooden structures, a lot of palm trees, very humid, very hot, very, very sultry conditions. And that's why those thunder showers pop up. So yes, there's always going to be the likelihood of that happening. And therefore, that idea of using the short ball tactic in seamer-friendly conditions is hardly surprising. Whether it's going to be overdone or whether it's going to be used selectively probably depends on how things shape up, because really only a fool goes into the game plan saying that I'm going to go with this and I'm not going to change at all. Basically, you respond to what happens on the field of play.
Yeah, and how valuable is Josh Hazelwood's return for the Aussies?
I think extremely valuable, because in these sorts of conditions, that term that we use often when we talk about his type of bowler, metronomic accuracy, basically Glenn McGrath style, Curtly Ambrose style, with even greater pace and bounce. Thereabouts, not doing too much, not necessarily spectacular, not necessarily intimidating anyone, but having enough pace, enough movement of the seam, and enough of that nagging accuracy that invariably he prevails in conditions like this. And I think that is what Australia will be relying on him for. Of course, they've got Pat Cummins, they've got Mitchell Starc, the starman on day one in that very short test in Adelaide. And then they've got the spin option as well, which you should never really overlook. Never mind the preoccupation with seam, because bounce also assists slow bowlers. So all of these elements play into it. But yes, Hazelwood, once he's on song, on form, is going to be a handful in these conditions for no reason other than his consistent accuracy.
Yeah, and Faz, we know that in your playing days, your proficiency rested with bowling and not batting. But I'm going to ask you a batting question now, because I want to ask you about Steve Smith's decline in form. Only 19 runs in the first 2 tests. His last 100 came 24 innings ago. For the past 9 years, for long periods, he had been the #1 batter in the world. And even if he wasn't #1, he was in the top 3. Now he has dropped to 11, and a serious concern for the Aussies, because he has been, as far as Australia's impact on world cricket is concerned, a very prominent player in their successes. What's going wrong with him?
Well, I think, I mean, far be it from me, because and I'm flattered by your reference to my bowling, which was really ludicrous in the extreme. I mean, in my club cricket days, my teammates would ensure that they had at least 3 or 4 people outside the Queen's Park Oval where I played my club cricket, so that they could retrieve the ball when it bounced into King George V.
I hear you, Faz. I'm not sure if that's accurate reflection of history, but go ahead.
Well, okay, but you can ask my former teammates; they'll tell you. But getting more seriously to the real situation, I think what has happened, far be it from me to venture, but I think what has happened is that Steve Smith has allowed his reputation to get the better of him, because I think it started when he volunteered to open the batting the last Australian summer against the West Indies, because again, Australia, for whatever reason, were fishing around for an opener, because it couldn't be a secret that David Warner was going to retire. But Steve Smith suddenly got it onto himself that, look, I'm good enough that I can open. And the inference was that the West Indies aren't good enough to give me any trouble. Well, we saw differently. And from that point onwards, it's been a challenge. And I think every cricketer, as we've talked about it before, every sportsman or woman, comes upon a certain period in their careers where it's a struggle. And therefore, he's been sorted out by the opposition. They've analyzed everything. This is the era where everything is available, in really microscopic detail. And therefore, it's up to him to respond. Because as you saw, when Bumrah trapped him first ball in the first test match, shuffling across the stumps, full length, trap, plumb in front, not very different from how he shuffled across, stabbed his bat, and was taken by Shamar Joseph, with his first ball in Test cricket. So that is obviously something that he's going to have to work on. But I think more than anything else, he needs to get back mentally to where he was before getting ahead of himself and saying, I am good enough to open, and nobody's really going to trouble me in this West Indies team. A dose of humility probably helps. And if the last 12 months hasn't been that dose of humility, I don't know what else will be.
Yeah, and as we're singling out players, Vaz, I want to move now to the India team, because it's no secret there are a couple of players within that setup that has not looked their very best, starting with the skipper, Rohit Sharma. You know, a lot of eyes will be on him because, you know, everybody wants to see whether he will move himself back up the order. How are things going to pan out for him?
Quality always comes out in the end, Mariah. And the beauty of a 5-test series, and I know it's almost an anachronism in this era of 2 tests and 3 tests. If you're lucky, you might get a 4 test, but to have a 5-test series with 2 of the big 3, which we understand why, the revenue, the interest, and so on. But from a cricketing point of view, this is the beauty of Test match cricket. Australia get annihilated in Test match 1. They rebound with a crushing victory in Test match 2. And therefore, it leaves everything wide open going into the Gaba. And therefore, for someone like a Rohit Sharma, who's obviously a quality player, he has the opportunity to redeem himself. And that is why I talk about the beauty of Test cricket, because we've seen it so many times over the years, where quality players who might struggle early on sort things out, sort themselves out. The most famous case to me is the legendary George Headley, when the West Indies first went to Australia, where he struggled, and by the end of it, he was being described by even the Aussies as the best onside player ever. Go back to 7.
Did Faz freeze?
Yeah, for the moment.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back though.
Yeah, he should be back with us.
Glitch in the Zoom system.
But yeah, a lot of talk as we wait on Faz surrounding Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, their run of form. And as I said, rightfully so, because of, people are spoiled based on their performances.
Yeah.
Faz is back, so let Faz continue making his point. Faz, you froze for a bit.
Yeah, because maybe I'm talking too much and the internet has had enough of me. But the point I was trying to make is that in drawing reference to Viv Richards as well, similarly struggled early on, and by the end of that series, which was his famous year of 1976, where he scored more runs in a calendar year, which was a record until 2006, he was blazing it to all parts. I say that to say that if you're a quality player, a 5-test series, as great and as formidable as the opposition is, you're going to have the chance to redeem yourself. And I believe Rohit Sharma, whether he goes back to the top, whether he stays in the middle, whatever he opts to do, is good enough to be able to get to have his moment. The question is, will he have enough of those moments, or will those moments be significant enough to make a measurable difference to India to grasp the advantage?
Yeah, does that comment apply for Virat Kohli as well, who has also struggled when it comes to his overall average?
Absolutely. And I think Virat Kohli has been worked out by everyone in world cricket,
Yeah.
because he always plays with that sort of semi-slash, semi-drive, the deliveries outside the off-stump, angling away towards the slips. It's a favorite area for him because it's one of the beautiful sights in the game to see Virat Kohli going through the covers. But again, a bit of extra pace, a bit of extra bounce, a bit of seam movement, and he's edging to the keeper or edging to the slips. That's therefore something for him to work out. When he's on song, as it was in the second innings of the first test, and he gets 100, it looks good. But when, again, the bowlers are having the upper hand, he looks vulnerable. And again, that is both his strong point and his weak point. That area outside the off stump, as it so often is for all cricketers for that matter, and he's got to be able to work it out. Again, the odds will suggest that he will have his moment. In fact, some will say, well, look, he's had his already with that 100, and therefore it's the Australian bowler's time now. So that is why it makes for such an intriguing challenge when we talk about Test match cricket.
Yeah, and Jasprit Bumrah, he's made every other bowler look pedestrian. Do you expect him to continue on his good run of form?
Well, I don't expect anybody to dominate Jasprit Bumrah, bottom line. Even if India are on their way to losing a test match, he still is such a quality bowler that you've got to respect him. The pace, the awkward line, the awkward lengths, the ability to generate pace from nowhere, the accuracy, everything about him tells us why he's the #1 ranked fast bowler in the world. It's because of that effectiveness and the ease with which he does his task, whether he's called upon with the old ball, with the new ball. And therefore, in seamer-friendly conditions, if they're using the new ball, he's going to be a handful. And that is what you look forward to seeing. I think the beauty of international cricket, yes, we have your T20, your white ball hitting 6s, 4s all over the place. But when we talk about a genuine quick bowler against a batter who's ready to take you on, like a Travis Head, for example, it presents a thrilling spectacle. Thompson versus Lilly, Lindwall versus Everton Weeks, and these comparisons, Lilly versus Fredericks, and so many of these confrontations are what people remember. They may not remember the scores, they may not remember the individual details and so on, but they'll remember the pulses racing when a Jasprit Bumrah races into maybe a rampant Steve Smith. You never know. It could really make for an enthralling duel.
Yeah, and fast, just before we go, I have noted, this is an off-the-field issue now, a certain narrative building, because in the past couple of decades, West Indians hated Australia, but I think because of India's dominance and seeming or apparent unfair boardroom administrative control that they have over world cricket, I'm sensing a growing dislike for India and people wanting India to lose. I'm a part of some cricket chats and so on. I'm not sure if you're getting that fever in TNT.
Well, what I'm getting, and this is a narrative that's been building for some time.
Yes.
I can tell you that on my first trip to Australia in 1996-97, one of the journalists there talked about the danger of that monster called India and that individual called Jagmohan Dalmia, who was the head of Indian cricket at the time.
Yes.
I think it was, to put it in a proper context, that the so-called authorities of world cricket said India should know their place. They may have the people, they may have the power, they may have the authority, but there are a bunch of brown people and they need to know where their place is,
Yes.
basically. And that is, and what is happening now
Yes.
is they're showing their authority economically, cricket-wise, arrogance-wise. They're pushing their weight around. They're saying, well, if we've been treated like second class and like dogs for so many decades, we're going to treat everybody like dogs. And you can hate us all you want. We don't care. And that is what I detect that we're seeing. That people love now to hate India because India are doing to everyone else what England and Australia were doing to everyone else. It's just that we've been conditioned
Yes.
to accept being second class when we're treated so by the Europeans.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Faz, as usual. On point with your analysis. Thanks, Faz. Great talking to you as usual. I know you will be up tonight watching India against the Aussies at the Gaba, starting 8:20 Eastern Caribbean time. That's your time, TNT, 7:20 in Jamaica. So we'll talk again Monday, I'm sure, Faz. Have a good weekend.
You take care and have a good weekend as well with your snowman outfit.
I forced him fast.
We'll be back after this.